You are not unmotivated, you are overstimulated. Think about that for a moment. How many times have you sat down with a burning desire to do something meaningful? Write that essay, build that business, study for that exam, or even just read a chapter of a book, only to find yourself lost in 1,000 distractions? Your phone buzzes, a notification flashes, a video autoplay grabs your attention, and suddenly the fire you thought was gone wasn't really gone. It was just buried under noise. We often mistake this suffocation for lack of motivation. But it's not that your ambition has disappeared, it's that you're drowning in constant stimulation. Viktor Frankl, the author of Man's Search for Meaning, wrote that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. In today's world, the situation is overstimulation. If you want to reclaim your motivation, you don't need more energy or more passion. You need less noise. Modern life is a battlefield of attention. We live in what Cal Newport calls the age of distraction. In his book, Deep Work, he explains that the ability to focus deeply on one thing is now a rare superpower. But how can we cultivate deep work when our minds are constantly fragmented into dozens of micro moments? Every beep, ping, and scroll chips away at the sharpness of our focus. It's not that you're lazy or unmotivated. It's that your mental space is cluttered, like a desk covered in papers, coffee cups, and wires. Imagine trying to create art on that desk. It's not impossible, but it's exhausting. Clean the desk and suddenly the space feels alive with potential. Your mind works the same way. The motivation is still inside you, but overstimulation has buried it under layers of digital clutter. Psychologists describe this as decision fatigue. Every time you scroll through social media, every time you open a new app, every time you're forced to decide which of 100 tiny things to give your attention to, your brain burns energy. James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, reminds us that habits are not built on willpower alone, but on environment. If your environment is engineered for constant distraction, your motivation will always feel like it's slipping away. But if you redesign your environment to reduce unnecessary choices, clarity and energy reappear almost magically. The truth is, it's not a lack of drive, it's a surplus of noise. And until you recognize this, you'll continue blaming yourself for being lazy when in reality, you're just overstimulated. Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps, a place where noise wasn't external but internal, fear, despair, hopelessness. And yet he discovered that even in the darkest conditions, humans could find meaning. He wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." If he could choose meaning amidst horror, what excuse do we have when our battlefield is Instagram and Netflix? The problem is not that we don't care enough. It's that we are never still long enough to hear the quiet voice of what truly matters. Overstimulation silences that voice. But silence, when we cultivate it, allows us to reconnect with our deepest motivations. Think about the last time you went for a walk without your phone. For the first few minutes, your brain probably craved stimulation. You reached for your pocket, only to realize there was nothing there. But after a while, a strange calm emerged. Your thoughts became clearer, ideas surfaced, and suddenly you remembered goals and dreams you had forgotten under the avalanche of noise. That is not magic. It is simply the mind resetting to its natural state of clarity. This is why great thinkers and writers, from Thoreau at Walden Pond to modern creatives, retreat into solitude. Not because they are superhumanly motivated, but because they understand the cost of overstimulation. If you want to feel motivated again, you don't need to consume more. You need to consume less. Less noise, fewer distractions, more space for your own voice. We confuse dopamine for motivation. The quick hit of pleasure from scrolling, watching, or clicking tricks us into thinking we are satisfied, but it leaves us empty. Motivation, true motivation, comes not from constant novelty, but from progress on meaningful work. As Daniel Kahneman explains in Thinking Fast and Slow, our brains are wired to prefer immediate rewards over long-term ones. That's why the short-term pleasure of distraction feels irresistible, even though it steals the long-term satisfaction of accomplishment. The key is not to beat yourself up, but to recognize the system you're caught in. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply human, living in an overstimulated age. Once you see this clearly, you can begin to fight back, not with more motivation hacks, but with deliberate subtraction. Cut the noise and you'll find the energy was inside you all along. Motivation does not vanish, it gets buried. And every layer of overstimulation pushes it deeper underground. But the good news is, just as overstimulation can bury motivation, intentional stillness can unearth it. The question is, how do we escape the storm of noise and find that buried spark again? One answer lies in the wisdom of Viktor Frankl and his timeless reminder that meaning is not discovered in comfort, but in struggle. When he walked out of the camps, he didn't write about despair, he wrote about purpose. He proved that humans can endure almost anything when they know why they must endure it. But what is our modern struggle? It is not physical survival in most cases, but psychological survival. The battle to protect our attention, our clarity, our ability to think deeply in a world designed to scatter us. Look at the way our lives are structured today. From the moment we wake up, we are exposed to flashing screens and endless streams of information. Before our feet even hit the floor, we have scrolled through emails, messages, and headlines that demand a reaction. By the time we start our day, our minds are already exhausted. Neuroscientists call this cognitive overload. When the brain is overloaded, it cannot distinguish between what is important and what is trivial. That's why you feel like you cannot start that big project. You're not lazy, you're simply depleted by a flood of minor decisions and stimuli before the real work even begins. If we want to reclaim our motivation, we must reclaim our mornings, our spaces, and our mental clarity. Cal Newport's digital minimalism emphasizes that technology is not evil in itself. It's the overconsumption that poisons us. He argues that our constant engagement with screens robs us of solitude, and solitude is the birthplace of creativity and motivation. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be bored? Boredom, uncomfortable as it feels, is the soil where imagination grows. The most motivated moments of your life did not come when you were overstimulated. They came in moments of stillness, when your mind had the freedom to wander and connect ideas. This is why people get breakthrough ideas in the shower or on long drives, because the mind, finally released from stimulation, begins to breathe again. Consider James Clear's observation that environment shapes behavior more than intention. If your environment is full of distractions, your mind will always be overstimulated. But if you deliberately craft an environment of clarity, by putting your phone in another room, by keeping your desk clean, by dedicating specific hours for deep work, motivation naturally reappears. You do not need to push yourself constantly. You need to pull away the forces that are pushing against you. In this sense, motivation is less about forcing energy into yourself and more about removing the barriers that drain your energy. Think of it like a river. Water naturally flows downhill. You don't need to motivate water to move. You just need to remove the rocks and dams that block its path. Your mind works the same way. There's also a profound spiritual element in this idea. In every major philosophy, from Stoicism to Buddhism, there is a warning against overstimulation. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. But how can the quality of our thoughts be high if we never give them room to breathe? Buddhists speak of mindfulness as the act of observing thoughts without getting lost in them. Both traditions highlight the same truth. Motivation comes not from more noise, but from inner quiet. When you are calm enough to listen, your true desires rise to the surface. That's when you remember why you started, what you want, and who you are. And here lies the great paradox. The more you chase stimulation, the less motivated you feel. But the more you choose silence, the more powerful your motivation becomes. Think of the athletes who rise before dawn, not because they are never tempted by distraction, but because they know discipline creates the silence where motivation is reborn. Think of writers who retreat into cabins or secluded spaces, not because they hate the world, but because they know the world is too loud for fragile ideas to grow. In every field, the most successful are not the most entertained. They are the most focused. They have discovered that overstimulation is the enemy of achievement. So what can you do practically? Begin small. Protect 1 hour of your day from noise. Turn off notifications. Put your phone in another room. Use that hour for something meaningful, whether it's studying, creating, or simply reflecting. That 1 hour of clarity will do more for your motivation than 10 hours of overstimulated grinding. Over time, that hour can grow into 2, then into a lifestyle where focus becomes your natural state. As William James, the father of modern psychology, once wrote, "My experience is what I agree to attend to. Only those items which I notice shape my mind." If you want a motivated mind, attend to fewer things with greater depth. You are not unmotivated. You never were. You are overstimulated, and the cure is not to whip yourself into working harder, but to step back and simplify. The world is loud, but meaning is quiet. The world is distracting, but purpose is patient. Viktor Frankl discovered that even in suffering, meaning could be found. For us, in this overstimulated age, the meaning is already within us. We only need to cut the noise and listen, because when the noise stops, clarity begins. And when clarity begins, motivation is no longer something you have to force. It's something you cannot contain.